Corpus Christi will soon consider a new ordinance about vacant buildings. Brian Burns reports the new ordinance means sizable fines for those who don't keep their properties up to code.
We've noticed that a lot of times the vacant buildings really hinder people from wanting to walk up and down the streets at nighttime.
Jeremy Wells, the owner of the Exchange on Mesquite Street, says there were several vacant storefronts in his block when he opened the restaurant last year. But new businesses moving into those vacant buildings are helping.
Since we've opened the Exchange, we've had a couple of businesses open up, and since those businesses have opened up, we've seen a lot more traffic and people feel a lot safer and a lot more comfortable walking up and down the streets because they see people are actually in those buildings.
Vacant buildings downtown have been a problem for years, and efforts to get property owners to maintain those buildings haven't always worked. A new ordinance will soon be presented to council that has more teeth in how the city deals with property owners who are not maintaining their vacant buildings.
Lights outside, a storefront, boards off the windows, and making sure that the building is not on the verge of collapse.
The Downtown Management District helped rewrite the proposed ordinance because the old one isn't working.
It's important to us to increase people feeling safe downtown. Dark, vacant buildings sometimes contribute to a lack of that feeling of safety.
Under the new ordinance, the city will require the owners of all vacant buildings to register with the city.
The ultimate fine is set by the municipal court judge, but it's up to $500 for failure to register within 45 days of the ordinance becoming effective.
Once approved by council, the ordinance will take effect October 1st. Brian Burns, 3 News.